This is by Sagan Hawks. And once again, I will link to this at the end as well.
The internet is chock full of discussions surrounding game preservation.
That's
What
right,
happens to live service games when they are eventually discontinued or dropped? The phenomenon of these disappearing.
That's true. I just had a conversation about that recently. I used to play a game called Dune Awakening. It's a fairly new-ish MMO. I enjoyed it a lot with the people in Nocturne. They've since moved on from it. I had to move on from it as well. I'm now playing where it wins me, but it's a whole different can of worms. But it's just a thing because in that game, it like you can build up a base, and then your base will become eventually destroyed. And it's part of the cycle of the game to make sure that as new players come in, they can essentially build on that same plot of land. It also ties thematically back into what Dune is, but it was just that whole concept of like the things that you build, as big as they are, since it's live service, they will eventually poof away.
Virtual realities have inspired countless fiction and unfiction projects which explore these themes and experiences in a heightened way. Today, I want to take a look at some games in this genre that I haven't been able to get out of my head.
You guys can't see it, but my god, dude, you need to clean your microphone. I'm gonna move myself real quick so you guys can see it. Like, I'm not one to judge. I'm not one to poke fun at. But my god, look at that microphone. That microphone is filthy, guys. It's filthy. All right.
So come along as we explore these surreal, melancholy, and often horrific dying MMOs, and join me in saying goodbye to a world.
I love that concept, the concept of saying goodbye to an MMO. There were like old games I used to play, like Ultima Online, Illusia Online, The Realm Online. I think some of them still exist in some way, shape, or form. But I remember like gathering together in some of those early servers and saying goodbye to everybody, or like everybody saying goodbye to the world as they like pulled the plug on it. Virtual apocalypse.
Dossip.net, created by Haid on Itch.io, takes place about 15 minutes before the servers of a fictional mid-90s 3D chat room permanently shut down. You explore the low-res, low-poly world filled with dozens of other players and places to see, while the ticking clock of the end of the world hovers just at the top of the screen. Loading in, you're presented with a brief avatar customization screen, choosing your username and appearance. Despite being fairly limited, the color sliders actually add a bit of depth here. You can really see how each user would be able to create a unique style and look to themselves even with the limited options. Walking out into the starting area, I was actually kind of surprised by the amount of activity. Though the other players don't do much except walk around the map, it still feels kind of impressively real. It's able to capture the feeling that these are all real users incredibly well. On that note, the chat section is abuzz with activity, disjointed pieces of conversations between people who you don't know cut out of context. It feels alive. Normally, that is not the type of thing you would expect for this kind of game. You're expecting empty courtyards.
I'm getting big RuneScape vibes from it. I hope they never shut down that game, but at least, like, from a distance, it reminds me of old school RuneScape. ASL, right?
Yards and liminal buildings, but there's a much more unique sensation created by the inhabitants here, a more acute sense of sadness. All of these people gathered together, waiting to die. Virtually, of course. And it's pretty accurate to real life, too. The final days of MMOs like this can resurrect a long-dead player base for one last hurrah, the rally before death. I meandered around this very vaporwave starting zone as more and more users trickled in and thought, not much to do around here, but I guess that tracks for a chat room. I actually stayed here for a while, just looking around at all the details, unsuccessfully trying to strike up conversation in the chat, when I began seeing other players through the trees, which led me to an opening into the rest of the map that I had completely missed. Normally, I might laugh off the wasted time missing an obvious door, but with the context of a timer counting down the minutes until the world's eventual erasure, there was an element of stress. Will I have enough time to really see everything? Needless to say, I gotta move on. As time went on, and I
I think that's just a situation with life. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but like for myself, there's still so much I want to see and want to do, but you always feel like there's a timer counting down against you. Like I've had like several hundreds of friends that I've met online that I'll probably never get to meet in real life. Just because of financial situations and also just distance and stuff. And it's like that resonates home with me quite deeply. Where it's like, oh wow, I hope I have enough time to see it all, but we probably won't. And it's making peace with that. That's the hard part.
Explored these delightfully cozy woods, the amount of users only continued to rise, and the chat became noticeably more active, filled with inside jokes and reminiscing on the old times, and the usual shitposting you'd imagine in a public chat room. Much of the writing seems noticeably modern as well,
Ever
from
heard
its
of dolphin
terminology
jelly?
to the
Oh my
web
God.
grammar, which could either mean the accuracy of the time wasn't particularly important to the dev, or that this takes place in pretty recent times, that Dossip is some decades old, deprecated piece
cool.
of software that's somehow clung on for so long, finally meeting its end. Moving ahead into the city area, I get to visit the famous Club Cactus.
You'll be surprised. There's actually a lot of old, weird, kind of like MMO-ish chat rooms that are still on. I've actually thought about doing that with this series, basically like installing like an old, kind of like MMO client that might still be active and just kind of exploring the abandoned worlds of it. I don't know.
Some of the
I
chatters
think that's
have
interesting.
mentioned. A bumpin' club complete with a banger soundtrack. And here is where I see what I think is someone literally spawning in and getting stuck in the air for a minute, which is such a small thing, but again, little details like this do make all these characters seem so much more real. Like, I'm really on here with all these people as they just are joining in. After some time in the club, I wander past the city limits and into the desert oasis, complete with pixelated waterfall. Finally twisting up to the very highest point of the world, peaceful music fading.
Speaking of pixelated waterfalls, I love Hytale, but I've been like so burned out on it lately. So that's why I decided to do something different tonight. I'm just like, I've been loving Hytale, but my God, has it just been like I've had like Hytale in the brain because of having to like bring the servers back up and helping Dax get them going and stuff. And it's like, oh my God. Anyways, yeah, pixelated water, it triggered me, PTSD.
In, I can get a good look at the entire map. Every other user running around in their own little personal last moments. Seems like as good a place as any to spend my last moments here on the server, which is right about when I fell off, finding myself right back at the beginning, with only a few minutes left on the clock. It was genuinely pretty tense trying to speed run my way back up to the top before the clock ran out, and I ended up making it there with only a few moments to spare. Finally, the timer ticked to 0, and nothing happened. At first. But then, one by one, each of the players begins to float into the sky, disappear into the heavens. All around me, all across the map, figures drifting into the ether as the once bustling world empties until it's our turn. And the game ends.
Ascension.
Though I can't vouch for the technical accuracy of the game, Dossip is able to capture the essence and vibes of the look and feel of these old chat room MMOs incredibly well. I'm not quite a 90s kid, but I found it to be incredibly evocative of games like Second Life or Maid Marian or Worlds.com. The low poly pixelated facsimiles of environments to hang out with your friends or make some new ones. There's something subtle to it that I can't even really put my finger on that just feels like it got it right. Like everything from the character movement to the FOV to the way the water.
It kind of reminds me of like an MMO that you would probably play on DOS or like Windows 3.1. And somehow like it connects through like a Java tar file or something. Kind of like in the old days, there was like mushes and muds, and I never really got into those. Those were like way before my time. But just looking at the aesthetics of this, that's what it reminds me of.
And particle effects acts, it just feels really perfect. As for the dialogue, the jumbled writing and disconnected conversations do serve this atmosphere, even if it does seem a little odd. On the one hand, it gives a little more wiggle room as to why nobody responds to your messages. Nobody is responding to anyone, really. It also creates this dreamlike quality to the experience. You can't stick on to anything for too long, and though much of it seems random and silly, there are a good amount of vaguely poignant messages here that remind you of the gravity of this whole experience. Very much enjoy it while it lasts. And though I think the dialogue is a bunch of text that plays out fairly randomly, whenever two pieces that feel like an actual conversation line up, it's pretty cool. Additionally, the way the environment slowly reveals itself to you as you explore gives a real sense of discovery. Like you never know when you're gonna reach the end or if some other path will appear, and that combined with the ever-ticking timer at the top creates a real feeling of impending doom, like the moon in Majora's Mask slowly growing closer. The calm of just trying to enjoy the moment, constantly fighting with the feeling that you want to make sure you see everything before it's all over. And again, these exact scenarios occur with some frequency in real-life MMOs all the time. The final moments of a large community getting together one last time. The Game Jam page even
Oh my god, Star Wars Galaxies, fuck. That got me right in the feels. Oh my god. I remember Star Wars Galaxy. Me and my siblings really enjoyed that game, and we didn't get to play it as much as we wanted to, but I remember that was something we really enjoyed, Star Wars Galaxies. And then years later, when we got our own computers, you know, going to college and stuff, we were bummed out when it wasn't a thing anymore. Now there's Star Wars The Old Republic, which I guess you could play, but I don't know, it's not the same, you know? It's not the same.
Some video examples that I want to discuss later. The end of these worlds is genuinely affecting. It means a lot to people, and I think Gossip does a good job of recreating that feeling. Everything from the vapor-wavy look to the very dated graphics and peaceful music makes the experience feel extra nostalgic, and if the dialogue is indeed implying that it does take place in modern times, it gives an extra weight to this thing finally kicking the bucket. Literally decades of history for the players disappearing in an instant. And then the finale, that slow rising rapture-esque culmination.
I said that too, rapture-esque.
That a game like this disappearing actually feels like to its players. A finality to a world. The ending of a place where people, even if only virtually, lived and spent their lives.
And faded away.
I would 100% recommend playing Gossip for yourself. It's short and sweet, and you can get a lot out of exploring all the little corners and reading the chat. But while Gossip has an element of dread, you gotta assert your dominance on the way out. It's still mostly a peaceful, kind of nostalgic experience. For our next entry, things take a noticeably darker turn. But in order to play it, we'll have to hop off of the family PC and onto something a lot smaller. A Nintendo DS. Sanctuarium Online.
I remember this game. I mean, not the game itself, but
also
this
for the dying MMO Jam.
Yeah. I was just about to say this. It was like an MMO type of like ROM that you could play on the actual hardware of a DS if you like knew how to load it on.
Sanctuarium Online was a 2005 MMO for Nintendo DS, where players take on the roles of godlike beings who reside over a town. The game functions asynchronously, meaning each player works on the world in their own turns without directly interacting with one another, leaving messages around town for other players in order to communicate. 20 years later, holy shit, 2005 was 20 years ago, the game is long dead, except for one server that is somehow still running. What happens to a world when the gods who looked after it have left? The game does a super convincing job at replicating the Nintendo DS look and feel, both graphically and mechanically, as it's built from the ground up to make use of the DS's two-screen format, allowing you to switch between first and third-person views to navigate different areas, as well as controlling really well with the controller setup. Let's see what happened to our little town now that it's been left alone for 2 decades.
Login debug.user.
Find a way to turn off this place. It must cease. We load in to find that the cute little world we must have once knew is in complete ruin, in a genuinely disturbing way. The tiny citizens we would have looked after lie scattered by the dozens, their corpses strewn all across the environment. The entire scene is post-apocalyptic. It is genuinely pretty disturbing to see this city filled with the small, scattered remains of its inhabitants. All of our hints and dialogue come through messages left in one of two ways. These larger green emblems, which are messages left by the game itself, and these smaller red ones, left by other players. Most of the time, these green ones are from a character called the King. Though the environment has clearly shifted to something much darker, the first few messages we find seem to be fairly standard tutorial fare. Welcome to the world of Sanctuarium. We were waiting for you. Are you ready to meet your new friends? Do not forget to introduce yourself. Find the 10 divinity sculptures and speak to them. They will help you. So, our most immediate goal is to find the 10 divinity sculptures to upgrade our character, which allow us to do various different things throughout. As for the player messages, the earliest ones are pretty innocuous at first. New players joining and seeing how the game works. Test. July 1st, 2005.
Cool,
to everyone. Switching views allow you to better see around. June 29th, 2005. The first divinity sculpture I find is right nearby, within the Forgotten Mall. The first-person view is most useful when going inside buildings like this, and there's a real sense of claustrophobia when entering most of these cramped corridors. And though the messages left outside the mall seem pretty mundane, we find two from the same user. WTF is going on here? Is that a bug? No, that's messed up. July 16th, 2005. Already, we're seeing some vaguely ominous implications around the map. What did they see in here all the way back in 2005 that made them leave these messages? Further in, we don't find anything particularly unusual, except of course the divinity statue Huitzilo, which grants us the ability to move large objects. Whenever a statue is collected, a small version of it follows behind you, and I don't know, I think it's kind of cute. Now might be a good time to also mention the main collectible within this game, these little droplets called the King's Tears. Though it's not exactly clear what that implies as of yet, it doesn't seem good. What's interesting is some of the context we get around NPC interaction as well. Blue drops are like currency, but NPCs are also collecting it.
Delicious tears.
I think NPCs are also moving when we're not connected. It seems to further explain how this small world ended up like this. When players are gone, the NPCs still have a life of their own, still collecting resources and wandering the map. The only question is what tragedy occurred while we were gone. Many of the messages left from new players also seem to focus on getting used to the asynchronous mechanics of the game, not always quite understanding it. Every day random messages are popping up. I can't find the others. So annoying we can't communicate directly with the others. Other players, however...
Ironically, that's pretty straightforward for like any sort of Nintendo game. And the reason why I say that is like, I remember like with Splatoon, if you wanted to play Splatoon online, you had to do all this ass-backward shit just to have a voice chat up and going. I heard they fixed it with Splatoon 2. I don't know if they did. Splatoon 1 was the extent of what I wanted to mess with.
Seem to be enjoying it. Nice view up the buildings. Everything seems so lively. I hope everyone is enjoying the sweet music as much as I do. How pretty this garden is. Reminders of the peaceful, picturesque place this used to be. But the message that is probably most helpful for me is this one. Find the frog as soon as possible, in the gray building on the left. This leads me to the statue for La Grenouille, which allows me to jump higher and is pretty much the most useful one in the game, opening up the majority of the rest of the platforming sections. Speaking of, I can now climb up this tower to get Le Pèlerin. I'm trying my best with the French, which increases our movement speed. As time goes on, though from the dates of these messages, not much time has passed since the launch of the game, players are still finding that something strange is going on here. I wonder why all the trees suddenly disappeared. Stuff is happening on certain nights and the tone of the city shifts strangely. A month out,
this already looks strange. How much more stranger could it be?
What's up with the cries? Something really odd was clearly going on with the game even before it was abandoned. Using all my newfound abilities, I collect the statues that let me float while falling, and one which gives me a pretty ominous new ability. You can now kill the starving king. Well, I guess I would have to find him first. The exact reason we need to kill the king in the first place is illuminated for us a bit by more of these green messages. This time not left by the king, but simply signed question marks. The starving king destroyed this land. Please take him down. They left us by ourselves. How could they? Why do we need to suffer that much? When everybody left Sanctuarium,
the king and take his
the king
tears
started draining all the resources.
delicious,
His
delicious
cries
tears.
flooded some of the places nearby the waterfall. Seemingly, when we emptied from the servers, the king of this place was left to consume endlessly, and seeing as the citizens actually seemed to use the resources in the world as well, left them all to die. But again, things have seemingly always been a bit strange, with more messages from the players reading, I don't know what this game is about, but something's totally
I don't know
off.
what this game
Anyone
is
getting
about.
Spams from the
Same.
king? And the answer as to why this game seems to have been behaving strangely before it was actually abandoned may come from a pretty innocuous message. Peak player count equals 6 on this server. That's some confidential shit. But I'll return to that in a moment. For now, along with a couple other statues giving us mild improvements to our speed and movement, this waterfall area leads us to a divinity statue that lets us explore the now flooded areas, along with finding this message. So cute to see all these little people living their lives. Damn. Underwater, we find another divinity statue that allows us to unlock previously closed doors. This leads us up to the final stretch, first gaining the ability to strike, and then climbing up and up a previously off-limits tower, and from this vantage point, we can begin to see something that was hovering over us the entire time. The source of all this water that was difficult to see from the ground. A massive, spider-like, half-organic, half-architectural thing. A moving, breathing structure which looms over the entire city. Water flowing from the building at its center. And nearby, we can find our means to get there. The final divinity statue, Aurora, which allows us to jump infinitely. Making our way to the center of this unnerving monument, we find what looks like ghostly or perhaps dead versions of the emblems that typically leave messages for us. And at the entrance of the building, 2 messages. First, from the king himself. Please take me down. Why do I need to suffer that much? And next, from the question marks, seemingly the essence of the game itself. Strike him on the face with the power of Besmond and Androgyne. End him, and us. Ahead, the king floats in this fleshy, cave-like chamber, almost reminiscent of a fetus in a womb, massive head crying tears which flow out into the waterfall that is now...
I'm so sick of that euphemism of, like, the final boss of any game being a giant alien fetus in a womb. Like, it was cool when Earthbound did it, but now, like, a lot of games that I've played recently have used that analogy for, like, a big bad, because they think it sounds cool and edgy or cool and interesting to basically be like, are you a bad enough dude to kill a baby? Which is kind of like, what the hell? It's like, no, it's not just any baby, it's an evil baby. I don't know. It's just so weird to me.
Now flooding this world. His body is emaciated and his chest heaves with each breath. His crown has fallen, now the same ethereal material as the player, almost ghostly. We have only one thing left to do. With our killing blow, the king almost seems to sigh in relief before the game blacks out. Thank you, debug user.
Okay.
This is definitely one of my favorite little indie games I've played in a long time. Not
that
only
one
does
didn't
it
really
do
speak to me
something
as much.
Aesthetically with its nostalgic throwback style,
I enjoyed
in this
it, but
case,
it didn't
the
really
Nintendo
speak to me
DS,
as much.
it actually does something mechanically unique that only really makes sense in a Nintendo DS format. Additionally, the way it is able to create this genuinely apocalyptic, unnerving atmosphere is incredibly impressive and very reminiscent of Kitty Horror Show's work, which, if you know me, is a huge compliment. And just from a purely technical standpoint, the authenticity of the DS look and even art design is really impressive, and you'll find more than a few comments from people who wonder if this was made using an actual DS SDK,
Yeah,
which
I thought
it wasn't. It's just that good a replica. Though I would love to be able to play this on an actual DS. The platforming is genuinely pretty fun, and certain parts of it really evoke Journey for me, which is like one of my favorite games of all time. From a purely lore standpoint, as long as you read all of the messages left by the game and other players, things start piecing together fairly quickly. To pull straight from the game's itch.io page, The simple fact of being active in Sanctuarium servers was sufficient to keep the world in a peaceful state. All of these NPCs seemingly keep living whether or not players are there, but they rely on the players to keep things peaceful and running smoothly. But the game never seemed to.
It kind of reminds me, there was a game called Populous. It's like an older game, but it's very much like a sim or a god type game where you have all these like little villagers or the worshippers, and they kind of do their own thing, but you have to like check on them every so often, because if you don't at least check in, they kind of off themselves or go crazy, or the blood sacrifices and stuff. It's always with the blood sacrifices.
Reach the heights needed for a really active player base, or at the very least this server did, peaking at only 6 players, many of whom seemed uninvested or confused, leaving the town largely without the guidance it would need. And so, even early on, players begin noticing the unsettling side effects. Trees disappearing, the sounds of cries, the king, who also watches over this place, spamming players as he's left alone, and events that are defined much more vaguely but nevertheless seem to unnerve them. When the game was finally left abandoned, the NPCs within it continued, including the king. Exactly why the king drained the resources of the world isn't entirely clear, but my best guess is that all the NPCs in one way or another are supposed to use resources, but the king, being the largest and most powerful of these NPCs, was most easily able to accumulate them, just a matter of his programming. And so, without the players to guide and
I wouldn't say it would be easy for him to accumulate them. I would say it was probably something where it was coded into the others' programming to appease the king, aka give baby his bottle. So they would put his needs above their own. At least that's how I interpret it.
facilitate the world, the caretakers long gone, the citizens slowly run out of their resources and die, the king endlessly consuming and eventually starving away. Left alone in this world, his subjects dead and his body withering, he cries out, flooding the world as he awaits in this hellish limbo for someone, anyone, to join the game again and put an end to his suffering. On a thematic level, where Dossip looked at what happens when the players leave the game, from their perspective, Sanctuarium Online asks us to consider the worlds themselves, the places we are leaving behind.
I've always thought about that too, because if there's ever, like, I first noticed this a long time ago with Ragnarok Online. We used to have a private server, me with a couple of friends, and Ragnarok Online is like ancient now. But there were times where I used to log in between my friends logging in, and there was like maybe like 20 to 30 of us. But going to college and school and so forth, being all busy, whatever. There were times where you would log in and you might be the only person online, and just seem like a dead world where the NPCs are still there, the music still sounds chipper and whatever, but it's just eerie and ominous and vacant. Very kind of like, Backrooms-ish, where it's supposed to be a world, but without people to occupy it, it's just vacant.
NPCs and characters and environment left to rot without its players. It's almost like a very fucked up version of that fear some of us had as kids after watching Toy Story, personifying our toys and worrying about what it would be like if they were truly alive and we left them in the bottom of the bin. And there are ways this manifests in real video games. One that always springs to mind for me being when I explored some long-abandoned Minecraft servers in my Digital Urbex video, and found different players' pets. We can't help but personify these little bits of code and rudimentary graphics, and it feels deeply sad to see this thing left alone for so long, unlikely to ever see its player ever again.
Oh, that's just sad. That's just sad.
I point to the real emotional connections and bonds we make as players in these sustained multiplayer worlds. As with all of these, I really encourage you to play this game.
But then again, to play devil's advocate, it would probably be more fucked up if you logged in. Like let's say, I don't know, let's say shit happened, right? Let's say the laptop that you used to play Minecraft on just like shat the bed. It wasn't alive anymore. And you forgot your login information. And then you get a new laptop or a new computer. And then you log in again. And then when you log in again, you're like, oh shit, everything's dead. That would probably feel even worse.
for yourself. There's a lot of messages I didn't read out here which add a lot to the world, and it's a genuinely fun little platformer. And where this game focuses more heavily on gameplay, the next project we'll be looking at has basically none at all, closer to a visual novel with the skin of a classic MMO RPG, which tells perhaps the most affecting horror story I've read in a long while.
Okay, now I'm interested. What?
Happy holidays, everybody. I just wanted to cut in here and say patreon.com/SaganHawks is where you can support me.
We will let him do his ad read because you guys let me do my ad read.
There's lots of exclusive content over there.
But also because we're making content off his content.
Exclusive
so
reviews.
That's fine.
Things like that, early access, voting, Q&As, stuff like that. So, if you like these videos, happy holidays, everybody. The Curse.
What a dork. I say that with love because I'm pretty dorky. What a dork.
By Baru on Itch.io is a horror mystery novel wearing...
That's right. Now is a good time for tea because if you use code MAGSNOCTIS at thedragonsorcerer.com, go get yourself some delicious tea. Get 10% off your order. That's right, a whole 10% off your order. And in all honesty, T-Man is a really good guy. And I am, I won't say I consider myself friends with him, but he is somebody that I communicate with now. I was going to say more intimately, but that sounds wrong. But no, I really appreciate his products.
The clothes of an MMORPG. Seeing as it's the only paid project on this list and is largely a written work, most of the value comes from reading the story for yourself. So I don't want to go into too many spoilers or as much detail. That said, I still really want to examine the way this story explores interpersonal relationships within MMOs and how they can affect our real lives.
So is this a book?
Our perspective within this story is Aveline, a newish player to a pretty classic fantasy MMORPG, as she interacts with the other players.
Now, this kind of looks like RuneScape-ish. RuneScape-ish with bears and orcs.
In her league, her guild essentially, of which she is also a fairly new member. Despite her newbie status, she has clearly been putting in a lot of hours, as we open on Aveline dreaming of the game. The HUD, the third-person view of her character, but instead of the familiar cartoony fantasy world, she finds herself within her own house at night. And now is a good time to mention, the art in this project is absolutely incredible. It captures every scene perfectly. Aveline creeps through the shadowy, ashen corridors of...
This looks like, yeah, I just saw down here at the bottom, I don't know if you guys can see it. It says back, history, autosave, save, quick save, preferences, etc. That makes me think it's one of those kind of like graphic novel, visual novel games, which isn't a bad thing. But I know how that engine is. I know because at one point I toyed with the idea of us making like a Nocturne dating sim using it, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
Her house, searching for her family, but the house is empty. Until there, a dark silhouette in the corner, watching from the darkness. Aveline awakens at her computer, the game's still open. What follows is a pretty naturalistic conversation between the league members, trying to get people together to do a raid, with Aveline being too low level to join. The audio design of this project is fantastic, void of the typical background.
That was always the worst when you were partied up with people and they wanted to do shit and you're too low level. Either they would have to carry you or basically rush you level wise, or you'd just have to like eat it.
Background music you'd expect, just the quiet sounds of wind and birds, making the whole world feel empty, even a little eerie.
I was living in Ashlands.
Eventually, Aveline wanders out to meet up with a member of the guild she doesn't know, someone called Hamer, who's off grinding enemies somewhere, his league chat seemingly muted. His conversation with Aveline is a little strange, and even more than that, his playstyle is very odd. Despite being a high level with magic abilities, he grinds incredibly slowly, exclusively with melee weapons. His explanation of saving his casts for emergencies is unconvincing, but he tells Aveline he'll use his casts when they're questing together. Most interestingly, he reveals that they have a mutual acquaintance, Thorfinn, another...
This sounds like some weird MMO stalker shit.
league member, who's friends with Eveline's older brother in real life and is the one
Yeah, this is some MMO stalker shit, I'm calling it.
who also invited Hamer to the league. Again though, Hamer speaks a little unusually and completely avoids answering Eveline's questions about how he and Thor know.
Okay, so I'll pause there, and on that kind of MMO stalker-ish thing. Guys, have you ever had a situation kind of like weird in regards to like an online guild chat thing? I'm not talking about like ERP stuff. I'm talking about like where somebody got like overly like I don't know, just like toxic or like overly like stalkerish to somebody. I think almost everybody has a story that either it happened to them or they witnessed it happen to somebody else. Those are crazy times, man. A few stories like that of my own. Maybe one day I would tell them, but I would have to like change names and stuff.
Each other. Unexpectedly, Hamer gifts Eveline an incredible item that he seemingly just had lying around. He's notoriously an incredibly high-skill player despite his odd playstyle and known to be generous with items. As the two continue talking, Eveline explains that Thorfinn has been helping her get into the game, and Hamer asks what she thinks of him. And Eveline's response definitely raises an eyebrow. She says he's nice, but he and her brother have these weird jokes. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's just weird and annoying, but she doesn't go into much more detail than, oh wait, I like muttered too. I have definitely seen my fair share. NPC she needed. Eveline does a decent job deciphering Hamar's generous.
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button.
As the two continue talking, Eveline explains that Thorfinn has been helping her get into the game, and Hamer asks what she thinks of him. And Eveline's response definitely raises an eyebrow. She says he's nice, but he and her brother have these weird jokes. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's just weird and annoying, but she doesn't go into much more detail than they say stuff and I'm like, why would you want to be like that? Don't tell them I said that. I think they don't think I'm cool or something, but I don't care about being cool. I just want them to not say weird shit to me. This paints a pretty vague
I've been
picture,
there, man.
But still sets off some red flags for me. That these are maybe not just annoying.
Even like in the VTubing sense, I have friends where it's like I appreciate them and I love them, but it's like just stop saying weird shit to me. Just be normal. And by normal, I mean stop saying weird shit because I think I'm pretty weird myself.
Jokes, but things they probably should not be saying at all, especially not to a younger sibling. But again, we don't have much more information than that. The conversation continues around Eveline's family. She still lives with her older brother and parents, and she reveals in pretty frank terms that her parents are verbally abusive and fight with each other often. I feel doomed. Like you killed someone. Yeah, exactly. It's like they think I killed someone. Eveline does a decent job deciphering Hamar's very strange analogy, but I can't help but feel that maybe she's trying to rationalize it into a context that makes it seem more reasonable and less, completely creepy. And throughout their conversations, we'll see examples of this, of Hamar making comments that seem ominous or strange, and Eveline trying to rationalize it for him. And Hamer does not make it easy for himself either, following up with, you ever want to? What, kill someone? I've thought about it. I don't think I want to go to jail though. I know I probably sound really scared.
the early ooh-woo eyes. Oh, that got me good.
Scary, but my parents aren't that bad. When people are shitty to me at school, it doesn't bug me as much because I've already dealt with worse. School? I'm still in high school. I don't think most of the league...
You never tell people you're still in high school. Never tell them how old you are. You never do anything. No matter how much you like somebody or trust somebody, you never freaking tell them anything like that. Never, 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 never. On another note, that's why I'm a VTuber. Haha.
Knows that because they might take me less seriously if they did. Hamer agrees not to tell the other league members, and the two continue questing. We cut forward to a conversation between
to kind of comment on that, that's another point of interest that we want to expand on slightly, which is like the escapism that comes from playing games like MMOs or other such games. Sometimes like immersive single player games like Skyrim or Fallout, what have you. There's a lot of people who get immersed in those games because they have a bad abusive home life, and it's just part of things. It's just escapism, flat and simple. And I think I don't think everybody who is like a gamer regardless of whether it's like tabletop or like Magic the Gathering or even video games, is necessarily looking for escapism because they want to get away from some weird home life stuff. But I think it still is escapism in some way. It's like, hey, I want to shut this out for a little bit, have some me time, play some games, unwind, which I think is good. It's good for your mental health to do so. But anyways,
Eveline
damn it,
and some
Bones.
of the other League members while Hamer is offline. Bugkiller tells her that some of the other League members seem to think Hamer is creepy.
Yeah,
One
take your
reason
mind
being
off
what
things.
happened
Very
between
good.
him and
Very good
another
soul.
League member, a woman named Zero. Supposedly, Zero and Hamer began questing a lot, but after some time, she appeared to start avoiding him, only logging on when he would be asleep. And then,
Oh, damn.
the NPC she needed to turn in all of these quests she did with Hamer started getting mysteriously griefed, killed whenever she would get on, leading some to think Hamer had an
Okay,
alt
yeah,
account
that's
he
some
was using to
stalker
stalk
shit.
her, grief the NPC, and camp in the area so the NPC wouldn't respawn. All of this, however, is just a rumor. Eventually,
Depressed.
Zero stopped logging on altogether. We follow up after Thorfinn joins the game, Eveline inquiring about Thor's relationship with Hamer. It turns out he's Thor's co-worker, and all of them, Eveline, her brother, Thor, and Hamer, live in the same town. She tells Thor that some people think Hamer's creepy, leading Bugkiller to whisper at her in the chat.
So this is basically this whole video is called Horrors Within a Dying MMO. So, and what we're doing is we're talking about it, also talking about our own MMO stories. One that I had brought up was that I think this Thor and our Hammer guy is basically a stalker of the main character in this game. And I was like, has anybody ever had like those weird kind of like toxic moments within an MMO, like guild or group or what have you? I'm not talking about like weird like ERP shit. I mean, that's just like whatever, but I'm talking about like weird, really weird stuff. Like there was one time when once again I was younger and we used to play like a number of other games, and we had logged into I think it was like Realm Online, and one of the guild members that I had at the time called me by my IRL name, and I was like, how do you know that? It turned out later, I found out that it wasn't necessarily a malicious thing. It's because we had a family member who was also in the guild, and they had said, "Oh, this character is this person. I know I'm related to them." So it just really threw me for a leap. But it was one of those like moments where I was like, I don't think so. But anyways, yeah, that's what's going on in this story, and this game is called The Curse. I'll link to the video afterwards.
Privately, saying he told her that in confidence, not to go around sharing it, and that he doesn't want to get kicked out of the league for starting drama between the members. Eveline agrees not to mention it anymore, but we see pretty quickly that she does not keep that promise when she and Hamer go questing again. Eveline confronts Hamer about not ever mentioning that he knew they lived near each other, and he admits that he's met her brother before too, and kind of already knew a lot about her before they ever talked.
Said, in WoW, I had a guy keep coming after me in PvP zone. I was way high level, but he just kept stalking and attacking me like a pesky fly. I had no idea what the deal was. Yeah, that's happened to me before too. I don't understand why people would do that. They're just, I don't know, like they pick you out and they're like, oh, you're my problem for the day. And what's even worse is you're probably higher level than them, so you just stomp them.
In the game. Eveline continues by confronting him about Zero. What the fuck happened between you and Zero? Because I heard you scared her off by being weird. Kinda like you're being right now. Don't know. You don't seem to know much of anything. Sorry. You've been helping me out a lot, so I'm willing to tolerate you. But just so you know, I know where you work and you don't know where I live. Okay?
Oh, damn.
Just keep it in mind. Is Taylor home? No. Why? You're gonna tell me you're friends with my brother now? No. Good. I'm sure.
See, what did I say?
Ass. I know how hard his punches
What
are.
did I say?
Want me to hurt him? If you hurt him, I hurt you. You want to hurt him. You're not making a lot of sense. He comes home late, he bothers you. If he hurts you, someone should hurt him. We're siblings, it's different.
Damn.
You probably don't
What
have
did I
any
say?
brothers, so you wouldn't get it. If anything happens between me and my brother, it's our business, not yours. Okay.
Damn.
And
What did
for
I
now,
say? Didn't I
this
call
is
it?
where
I
I'm going to
called it
leave the
there.
story. I think going much further would begin ruining the mystery, and this has built up enough of the dynamic that I think I can actually start discussing the story in an analytical way. The Curse paints an impressively realistic picture of the interpersonal drama that can occur within virtual communities, specifically within games. Obviously, there's a
Pizza
ton of
chip.
great friendships and relationships and
Yeah,
experiences
I
that
saw
can be
that
had
too.
within these communities, but just like the real world, these communities can be filled with secrets and baggage and drama. For instance, one element I think this story shows implicitly is the ways in which the internet lacks many of the guardrails that exist within real-life peer groups. When you log onto an internet community as a high schooler, you can seamlessly disguise yourself into a world and community of adults, instead of your other teenage peers. For some, the anonymity and ability to interact with wide swaths of people is great, but it can also put people into vulnerable positions. Pretty clear that Aveline is dealing with social
I mean, not to go into like a weird area, but that's how grooming starts. That's how grooming happens. I mean,
isolation and abuse within her family and school life, and dealing with the mental health issues that come with it, putting her in a pretty vulnerable state for someone like Hamer. Though his intentions aren't entirely clear at this point in the story, his strange behaviors, gift-giving, and comments about her real life that range from odd to horrific seem clearly dangerous for a socially isolated teenager. And if Bug Killer is to be believed, this is a pattern for him with other women in the league. In a larger sense,
when it popped up in the chat where he's like, want me to hurt him, that reminded me of like, maybe this is something I could talk about later. It was, there was I think it was a series of killings or a number of killings that happened in reference to like Vampire the Masquerade. They were like the Vampire Masquerade murders. And one of the, it was a whole thing, but basically one of the guys was in love. I say in love, air quotes. You guys can't see me air quoting, with a girl, and she had convinced him to basically kill her parents, and he did it, and then she kind of freaked out. She's like, "Oh shit, I wasn't being serious." And anyways, it was a whole long story. I might cover that. That's kind of an interesting chapter of World of Darkness lore. It's not actually meta. I'm sorry, that's completely meta. It exists outside the game.
The Curse explores how these relationships within virtual worlds can have real-world consequences. Conversations don't pertain exclusively to the game. Aveline discusses intimate details of her real life, and as the later reveals about Hamer goes to show, we are not always as anonymous online as we think. The line between real-life relationships and virtual ones is very blurry, and this goes for people meeting through video games, social media, or any other internet medium. And often, like with Hamer withholding the information he already knew about Aveline until she uncovered it, the separation of the screen can be used to obfuscate and obscure this. Now,
I would say, though, I think that's an important thing. Like, if I knew my sister, for the sake of argument, was a VTuber, I would not say it. Like, I mean, the worst thing you could do is like say that right away, especially like in a chat thing, and be like, "Oh yeah, hey, bippity boopity, I know who you are," type of thing, because everyone can read that. And honestly, I think I wouldn't even say it even if I did know it, because for me, the anonymity of it is what's important. But that's just my opinion.
despite this not technically being focused on a dead MMO, I think this project was a really useful way to further explore the themes we've been discussing. How our emotions, connections, and experiences within the virtual worlds can feel or even just actually be just as affecting and real to us. Our relationships through these games can bleed between the physical and virtual without the barrier that we sometimes assume just because the internet is anonymous and not real. Just log off isn't always actually helpful advice. The Curse actually explores a lot more.
Just log off, guys. It goes away. I once had a friend who used to think that like stuff that happened like in MMOs or online, it's like, it doesn't matter. They're not real people. I'm like, wow, okay.
More themes and concepts than we've focused on here, so again, I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. In our next and final project, we explore some of the exact same ideas, how virtual communities can connect with physical friendships, and how all of that comes together in exploring a mid-2000s forum and a long-dead MMO. Gorgon's Garden, released...
But before we get on to that, let me just go ahead and do my little ad read right now for the Dragon's Treasure. So go ahead and use code MAGSNOCTIS. Get yourself some delicious tea from thedragonstreasure.com. Once again, code MAGNOCTIS, all one word. Get 10% off your order. Appreciate you guys. Okay, back to the video.
On Itch.io by Squup and Fever Dream Johnny this past Halloween
Fever
is
Dream
another of
Johnny.
these fake MMO games. Fever Dream Johnny has dipped into this genre
I
before
remember that
with his
game.
more
It's
well-known
weird.
series Let's Go Baby. But
Let's
Gorgon's
Go Ba- what
Garden
the
takes
fuck?
on a world
What the
that's real.
fuck?
On a
Let's
summer
go,
day
baby.
in
Oh my
2008,
god.
you find yourself
Why?
lurking on hypogeum.net, a niche forum that used to be centered around an MMO known as Gorgon's Garden, before the game became inaccessible due to the introduction of a paywall for a long-defunct digital currency. However, the forum's resident hacker has successfully managed to crack
The
said
forum's
MMO, removing the
resident
paywall and allowing
hacker.
users to explore it all over
Wow.
again. Further, the description characterizes it as a love letter to old forum culture, and the more earnest and amateur
I do miss old forum culture, I won't lie. Like having cool little like subscriptions and little like avatars and like banners and in your signature and stuff like that. I really think like I love Discord, I will say that, but I really think that Discord killed those old forums. I know some of them are still around, whatever, but let's be honest, they really aren't the same. Why would somebody go on a forum when they can jump on a Discord?
tone of older creepypastas. Two things I also have an affinity for and have discussed on this channel before, so I am very excited to see what this project has to offer. On a base level, the game takes the form of a mostly completely
Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that it's like a digital environment here. Like it's like inside of a monitor. That's kind of interesting.
functional virtual desktop, allowing you to freely switch between the game itself, the forum, a notepad, and other images and files you download throughout the game. There's also a decent bit of customization here, letting you change your cursor and desktop background, with the clever side effect
That's
being
cool.
a mechanic where you have to
I
set
love that
image files
hamster.
as your desktop background
A box
in
in a
order to
box.
zoom in to get a closer look or read certain text. Hopping into the game first, Gorgon's Garden is a very cute little MMORPG, familiar to those of us who played a lot of internet or browser MMOs back in the day. And stylistically, it is so very of this mid-late 2000s era, with a very scene,
I don't know why those little demon things remind me of Korra.
emo, hot topic, Invader Zim type aesthetic. I don't know exactly what to call it. That wasn't really my vibe.
I know
back
exactly
in the
what
day,
he's
but
talking
it still
about.
feels instantly recognizable as existing in that space of internet culture. Also, I just love the way the NPCs go when you talk to them. Within the story of the MMO, the player is a human sent to save the City of Lost Souls from the hostile spirits commanded by the Gorgon, in order to help their spirits pass on. But we can't get any
Okay.
further than the opening tutorial area without buying beans, the digital currency
Beans.
mentioned previously that is clearly a goof on cryptocurrency. So we have to look to the forums in order to progress. Hypogeum.net
Give me those
is a
beans.
perfect recreation of a now very dated forum culture of the 2000s in a genuinely funny and authentic way, very similar to projects like Hypnospace
back-end
Outlaw or
stuff.
3D Workers Island. It entangles all these little bits of internet culture, from the My
You
Little
guys remember
Pony
RPing
role
back in the
players
day
to the
on
specific
GG?
lingo of
Oh
the
my God.
era to the forum's very own inside jokes. Browsing it, you will stumble across tons of really funny characters and interactions, and I don't want to spoil too much of the fun for you, but I will talk about my two
Sorry,
favorites,
Paul.
starting with this guy Mr. Meager, who tells everyone that he's only like 1 inch tall and nobody believes him. I always hate when my wife accidentally puts my bed away in the cupboard. Dude, I don't know why you're always
Yeah, I
trying to
miss
troll people
forums
like
too.
this. I'm not trolling, holy sugar, mate. I'm as small as a pea. I have to jump on every key you see me send. The other user that I love is
What
this
the
kid,
fuck?
the animation show, who is clearly just a small child who makes animations, and his writing style is genuinely hilarious. hilarious. It a TV show I'm gonna make. Oh wait, I like Muttered too. I have definitely seen my fair share of kids like this in my time online, and the game captures the personality very authentically. However, the most important character for starting our journey into Gorgon's Garden is the Red Pig, a forum mod and a self-proclaimed hacktivist who has cracked Gordon's Garden and removed the need for the beans currency, allowing all of us to play unimpeded. All we have to do is navigate to the post with the download link, run the shady cracker software.
Oh my god. Did you guys, like real talk, did you guys ever do any weird shady shit like downloading crackers or like no CD keys or like key generators and then you fucking like bricked your old computers? That didn't happen to me, but I helped a number of friends fix their computers when shit like that would happen. I was smart enough to know what virtual environments were, even like back then. So I would have essentially run the thing inside of a box, which is what a virtual environment is. So this way, if it was an exploit or some kind of weird malware, it just got like shut down and nuked right away. But a bunch of people don't know about that type of stuff.
And relaunch the game.
The Red Pig. You got fucked, bitch. Did you see that? They got fucked.
We have a seemingly infinite premium membership and can go about exploring the rest of the world and fighting off all the little demons and spirits. Is that the Flatwoods monster? Cool.
What?
In order to progress,
cool,
you have to reach a certain level. So you've really got to explore all the little alleyways and defeat all the enemies. So far, there's nothing too unusual or unsettling about this game. Moving on from the city, we descend into a more subterranean maze, filled with even more enemies, adding Draculas and ghosts to the list. There are a lot of fun interactions and characters you can run into down here, but there's one in specific that feels a little out of place. This weird little red character that doesn't say anything,
he looks like a
with
pizza
the name
roll.
1998. Just feels like an odd inclusion, but still nothing too weird as of yet. Winding our way out of this underground maze, we reach
Oh, what the heck?
the Gorgon. The atmosphere is dark and eerie, uncharacteristic of what you'd expect in a game like this, lacking any boss music.
There's a small attention to detail that I just noticed. I like how you can see right here in the background. You can see the kitchen counter and like, I guess that's like a fridge or something. Very reminiscent of like early internet, I guess culture for lack of a better word, where everyone had like the PC either in the kitchen or in a family area.
Or high-intensity sound effects. And just as we approach, the game shuts down, and our desktop flashes with some very brief command line windows. Rewinding and pausing at the right moment here, we can see that they read, "I lie still, folded between two blankets.
What the fuck?
I wait for someone to disentangle me, but nobody comes. Jamie? Dylan? Help me, please. So much water is pouring in, smothering me. I get the blanket off my face, but I can't see anything. A pinprick of something darker than dark carves through. Please let me go home. I am begging you." Now that is strange. Reopening the game, we find we're in a brand new environment, Skygrave, in need of a password to proceed. I suppose it's time to take another look at the forums. It appears that other users, now able to play the game as well, have all reached the same roadblock. Where's the supposed password located? After a bit of prodding, the Red Pig admits that he changed the password from its original, and has hidden the answer somewhere in the forum, his own scavenger hunt /ARG. This decision to more directly tamper with the gameplay is a bit controversial, some seeing it as him making it more difficult for no reason and disrupting the purity of the game. After a bit of investigation, we find that the Red Pig actually has a download link in his post signature, which opens this strange little program that at first appears to be a prank of some kind.
I remember that shit.
But in actuality,
hey, Ollie,
this is a keypad, just awaiting the correct code, which we find in an unlikely place. The animation show. For seemingly no reason at all, in this very same thread, The animation show lists out a bunch of random colors. I see in colors when I close my eyes. Let's jot these down just in case. If we use those colors in conjunction with the download buttons, we can unlock the secret hidden within this program, which as it turns out is a TXT file titled The Magic Word, with a red arm icon that reads, The Magic Word. Blanket. The reference to a blanket is seemingly a connection to the messages which appeared in the command line. I don't know, something feels off about this The Red Pig guy. But the password provided here does indeed work, and the door into the rest of Skygrave opens.
God damn.
Inside, we find a spooky, desolate, and even more challenging area. Eyes in the sky, new enemies, the works. And I have to admit, despite the simple mechanics, it's really fun. There's even other human hunter NPCs scattered.
Oh really? That's cool.
These demons are pissing me the hell off.
A red burrito in the game.
The world is lined with gravestones
A red
containing
burrito.
fun, goofy little cartoonish names and messages, but one of these feels a little more earnest than the others. Here lies Kyle. I'm sorry we never found you. Again, more little bits of genuine eeriness worked into this otherwise charmingly spooky little MMO. It's also worth noting at this point that despite users supposedly being able to play the game at this point, we haven't run into any other players as of yet. I wonder why that is. Finally coming to the end of this area, we find an upgraded weapon that will allow us to progress further. Nice. We go to collect it and...
Who saw that coming? I saw it coming. Of course that was gonna happen, some dumb shit like that. Hey look, it's an arm.
Desktop background has now been replaced with a very
God
of a severed arm.
The amount of time shit like that would happen because someone would download like a rares file from like LimeWire or some other like weird shit, and then they'd play the game for like 5 minutes and then they would get something like this and they're like, oh my god, or like it would pop up with like a thing on the desktop that would say something like, oh, we now control your computer or whatever, like something weird. It's crazy.
Just like the icon on the Red Pig's text file, there is something darker going on here. Booting up the game again, we find it completely transformed. The environmental textures change to morphing red images of faces and flesh and blood, and our character information has been altered as well.
Right.
Dylan has joined, one of the names from the command line messages. And many of our stats have changed to 1998 and goodbye. We have fully gone off the deep end. Something is deeply wrong here. From here on, things get much more difficult, facing enemies that take on the varying forms of distorted faces and flesh and body horror with even more horrific sounds. As we continue battling our way through these new disturbing enemies and horrific landscapes, we come out into a field of sorts, filled with trees built of severed hands and another giant eye in the sky. At the center of this arena, we find a lone archway, with a gravestone reading, "Blanketed in shadow, the temple only shows itself to those who recede into it." Blanketed, you say? This seems like as good a time as any to check on the forum again. Diving once again through some of the new posts made by other users, we notice an obvious lack of posts about this strange turn the game has made. Seemingly, no one else has made it to this point besides us. Our answers as to how to move forward once again come from the animation show, in a thread full of users sharing their art projects. The animation show captions his, "I draw a picture, I saw it when my eyes closed." Downloading and opening it up, we see that it's a pivot-esque animated gif of a character running backward through a door as an eye watches. Why does this kid seemingly always have supernatural visions of the answers to our puzzles? Following his direction, we walk backwards through the archway to see a hallway extend out behind us. A massive temple has appeared. In the heart of the temple, we enter the eye of a swirling hurricane of faces and viscera, and in the text chat, watch hopelessly as we're given a countdown. The nerves are dying. Soon the arm cannot be reattached. Remaining time until cell death. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Minotaur stalks the labyrinth.
What the hell? The Minotaur stalks the labyrinth? There'll be some creepypasta jump scare, right? Yeah. Look!
Quickly checking
They
the
got the
forums
desktop
before
back.
we reboot, we find that some horrific, glitched, Zalgo-ass user has created a new
Zalgo-ass.
thread, "Wish you were here," and provided a download link for
You
a
guys
file.
remember? You guys remember when that was all the rage, like in the 2000s, people using the Zalgo-ish like text font to like make things look all distorted and edgy, like reality was breaking. Man, that was so cringy, and I'm guilty of doing it.
Has created a new thread, "Wish you were here," and provided a download link for a file, 1998. Oh, I've seen this. The image provided is dark, an almost undiscernible photograph of some kind of red mass, and the same severed arm we keep seeing. Maybe even multiple limbs? Anything definitive other than the arm is near impossible to make out in blurry crimson morass. Additionally of note, the dates of all the posts have been modified, now reading 1998 over and over. Relaunching the game, we find ourselves in a nearly unrecognizable, distorted version of the city we played through near the beginning of the game. And then the red pig joins the game. I'm glad I could finally reach out to you. In my own way, I guess. It's unbelievable it had to come to this. First you cut me out of your life, then I try to reach out to you online, and you push me away there too. So eventually the game was all I had left. The only place I knew you wouldn't expect me. I could never believe you abandoning me like that. Forcing me to explain to my mom and dad what happened to Kyle. You're a fucking coward, you know that? Pathetic. At first I just wanted my friend.
This is like some drama dump that I wasn't expecting. What the fuck?
Back. But the longer I was away from you, the more I began to hate you, loathe you. You could just cut this out of your life, cut me out of your life, leave me to pick.
I have cut plenty of people out of my life, and usually it's for illegitimate reason. I do not think anybody should have to subjugate themselves to debasement by anyone. So yes, yeah, that is how it happens. Only a narcissist demands to be in somebody's life when they're like, nah, we're done.
Up what's left, just like that night. I wish you could feel even a fraction of the pain I went through these past 10 years, trying to find answers, trying to find Kyle. Kyle, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we lost you. And I'm sorry Dylan failed you, failed me, failed everyone who.
Hey look, there's the arm. We found it, guys.
This maze, we find the arm. The game cuts to black, then closes for a final time. The last piece of the puzzle to find is within yet another new forum post. Goodbye, Dylan. Only a single link, a PDF file. Here_Dylan. A newspaper clipping explaining finally what happened that night in 1998.
I'm sorry. I know that's terrible to laugh at it, but dead arms been popping up everywhere. Lots of blankets and arms in this game.
Kyle Castanelli, a local teen, was spirited away in the night, leaving nothing but an arm in his wake. The other two boys involved with the incident claim it was the result of a joke gone wrong. They had gone out to the woods with Kyle with the intent of playing a prank. The blanket game, as the legend is known, involves heading away from civilization with nothing more than a blanket and a bottle of water, and under the right circumstances claims that once the game is done, the recipient will be whisked away to a place unknown. As for the real
Okay, I don't think the blanket game is a real thing. I know the elevator game is a real thing, or at least, you know, it's a real thing people believe in. And I've always thought, why would people do this? Like, if it's going to take you to places unknown, why would you even mess with that? Do you have a return trip in mind? How the fuck are you going to get home? Because even though you might be cool with running away from everything and, like, disappearing in some crazy, fantastical world, eventually, like, you know, your family's going to come looking for you. Eventually.
Appearance of Castanelli, authorities claim that the incident was likely the result of an animal attack, explaining the dismembered arm and disappearance of Castanelli's body. Skeptics, however, point out that the arm's shoulder is curiously fused shut, as though it came fully formed without a body. Included is a photo of Kyle's severed arm.
Okay.
What I find so interesting about this game's format is that the game we play is really more like the side plot to a central story that we're only getting a glimpse of. This blanket game and the story
Yeah, I kind of don't like the whole bait and switch of you think it's a like an MMO thing, something that's going on with an MMO, but it's really not. It's just like somebody who might have done something stupid, like at a birthday party type thing. I don't know. I find that a very poor form. But then again, it's not my game.
Of Kyle, Dylan,
I'm just critiquing the story.
and Jamie is clearly based on both real creepypastas of the 2000s and 2010s,
Yeah, I
including
can
the
see
often
that.
dangerous challenges and games that spread around forums and social media, but also some version of the rare but real stories of creepypastas inspiring acts of intentional or unintentional harm to the kids who discovered them. This truly does capture, in a very authentic way, the world of internet horror, from the campy and spooky side to the genuine anxiety and unease that sometimes surrounded it. What's even more interesting is that parts of the story aren't inherently supernatural. The game isn't haunted, it was modified intentionally by somebody with a vendetta against the player. Same with the
Yeah, that's
forum,
kind of
as the Red
annoying.
Pig is also a site moderator. I think this angle is a fun subversion of the typical haunted game trope we'd expect, which lets the game feel more personal and grounded to some degree. But there's clearly still room for a
fucking coward,
supernatural
you know
element. Were the command line messages added by Jamie? It's possible, but also seems just as likely it could be from Kyle himself, his spirit. Additionally, was the animation show just an alt from Jamie the whole time, giving us clues? Or
I think
was there a
so.
supernatural element going on that was affecting this actual kid? And of course, the fused arm and the rest of the newspaper's story seems to imply that the blanket game was in fact a real supernatural phenomenon. That this seemingly waterboarding-based teen game actually did
Waterboarding-based
transport
teen.
Kyle into some dark, terrible limbo. And in the frenzy of the prank, his arm was left out of the blanket when he was taken. This ties in pretty directly with Gorgon's Garden's themes of tormented spirits needing to be released from this city of lost souls. Though whether the events of the game actually led to Kyle moving on to something better is unclear. The only thing I wish was that the game of Gorgon's Garden connected just a bit more to the very specific and strange blanket
Yeah, I
game.
can
I wish
agree
there was a little
there.
more connective tissue between the two, because I felt like the reveal at the end seemed a little out of left field. But
Yeah,
still,
I can.
I think the connection
I could totally agree with that. That it's kind of like a bait and switch. It's like you signed up for an MMO thing, and then all of a sudden you're getting like dumped with some. It's fictional, of course, but some fictional like IRL like stuff that happened. And it's like what? What the hell?
connections made between all the different elements were very clever and interesting. Coming at this from another perspective, I think Gorgon's Garden once again explores how these multiplayer games can act as a conduit between people, as genuinely social places where players maintain relationships, positive and negative, and that includes vendettas and trauma and much more. The events we experience in these digital worlds isn't a simple binary between the virtual and real. Users often know other players in real life. As explored in The Curse, they play the game with or were introduced to the game by people they already know, far from being a completely
That was something that happened a lot, like in the 90s, 2000s. It was like you would only find out about a new game or new MMO if you had friends that were already playing it, and either they would have to give you like an invite code to give you like 2 weeks or a week free or maybe a month free if it was a cool game. Because like free to play wasn't even a thing back then. It's like only if it was, I think, early access, or even then we just called it beta testing back then, not early access. That was the only way you got into those games.
disconnected fantasy world, our relationships with other people online are all too real. Which I think brings me to a wider point that all of these games have brought me to, in one way or another. So far, we've discussed a bunch of different games, which explore the experiences and events of an MMO's life cycle, while
Very
they're
true.
alive, when they're dying, once they're dead, and when they are resuscitated. And all of them, in some way or another, have explored how these virtual worlds can impact us as players in very real ways. But they are far from the first works about this subject. It's just a new medium. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, a variety of documentaries were produced which follow the lives of hardcore MMO players, exploring how they make connections to people in-game and how playing affects their lives. Films like Second Skin, Life 2.0, explorations of a burgeoning phenomenon of people living within virtual worlds. But we'll come back to them in a moment.
Real talk, I hated Second Life. I hated Second Life so much. And the main reason why I hated it is because there was no point to it. And I know people can say, oh, but Second Life was cool because you could make your own stuff. You can make like your own little MMO within a thing. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's a lot of bullshit. I mean, like, it's a lot of work to do that when you could go and invest the time and energy into like making, like, for the sake of argument, right? Let's say like a D&D like setting that you really liked and making that an actual thing in Second Life. And then you're like, I finally got it done, guys. Come enjoy my world, whatever. And they're like, yeah, but the new expansion for WoW just dropped, so we're gonna play WoW instead. It just like the payoff isn't there for me. I don't know. That's just me. Never played it, but knew somebody who did. Yeah, I'm not judging anybody who liked it. If you liked it, or if you know somebody who liked it, more power to them. I'm just saying, for me, it was kind of like, but why? Why?
I think I'd like to take a quick, more in-depth look at what we've covered so far first. First, I want to reiterate the case that these are real places in some sense of the word. We make real connections and spend real time in the virtual space. They act as working social environments. Our brains don't so easily make differentiations between the physical world and the digital one. Within the aforementioned documentaries, players often discuss how their memories intertwine between both the game world and the real world. They are fully integrated into our personal life narratives. And though many...
Have you guys ever had a memory from like an MMO or a game? Maybe like you had friends around, like it was a couch co-op type thing, but something that only exists because you guys were there to experience it. Something that will never exist again. I have those surreal thoughts all the freaking time, and it drives me nuts. Maybe I need to up my medication.
Many of these documentaries cover this idea of spending so much time and being so invested in these digital, non-real spaces as being unique and abnormal. When we factor in how much non-gaming virtual social worlds have overtaken the average person, it doesn't seem so crazy. Between social media and Discord and forums and Reddit and online games, we spend large portions, even a majority of our waking time in virtual worlds, especially when socializing. There's been a growing conversation about where our third places went, and like it or not, I think they've mostly been digitized. And that's not to say there is not a trade-off or a negative side effect of switching to the mostly virtual just because we can think of them in some sense as real. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. We may fall more easily into the trap of thinking of this as just spending a little time off in a virtual space disconnected from our lives, when maybe we should look at how we interact with these things with the severity they deserve. Would we ever want to spend this much time in a crowded lunch hall of tens of thousands or a blaring party of often random people? If we are going to spend a lot of time in the virtual world, what kinds of places do we want to spend it in? And
yeah, I'll comment on that real quick. I think that hit a good point. So, there are friends that I have that I'm only friends with to this day because I knew them like in high school or college. And back then, you became friends with people not because you liked them. It's because everyone was in a similar sort of friend group or friend circle. Um, and it was kind of like you had to put up with people because you would see them every fucking day. And that bubble, that illusion doesn't break until you get out of high school or get out of university or college or so forth. And once that bubble kind of breaks and you realize, oh, I don't have to subject myself to this person's presence, it really changes your perspective on things. Because it's like you just said, would you subject yourself to sitting into a lunchroom with 100 other people? No. If I had an opportunity now today, it'd be fuck no. I'm not gonna do that. No, I'm not. No. I'll fucking DoorDash myself something or go out for lunch. But back then, it made those memories that you probably would never experience because you had no choice but to exist in that world, in that circle. I don't know. I'm just rambling now.
Are they toxic to us or helpful? Then there's the element of our relationships within these places, not just the places themselves. There is not a simple cutoff between our real-life interactions, consequences, and relationships and the virtual ones. It is in fact very, very blurry. The things we do, the people we meet, they exist in the real world too. Now, however sensationalist some of these older documentaries may be to some extent, they do show pretty accurately how people will upend their lives to be with people, romantically or otherwise, that they meet in games. And though
Yeah.
these films make finding a partner through Second Life or WoW seem strange, it is utterly commonplace to date through dating apps now, and it has been for a while. And it is
Valid.
not at all uncommon to find a relationship, local or long distance, with people on social media or
More body
Discords
fat.
or whatever else. Personally, the majority of my friends and family that I interact with, I can only do so with such frequency because of things like Discord and multiplayer games that we play together. And when looking at some of the
Or like
documentation
Messenger,
of the
Instagram,
deaths
so
of these
forth, yeah.
MMOs, like the videos provided on the Game Jam page, it shows just how impactful they can be. People hold memorial services for lost loved ones. There are items or
Oh my god, yeah. There was a guild member way back when in a game called Ultima Online where they had passed away, and we had made a memorial for them. I won't say who or when because that might be a little bit too personal for myself or for them, but uh, that fucking hit home right now. Wow.
monuments within the games that stand as memorials to community members who have passed away. And so watching these places die off can feel like watching a real apocalyptic event. It's why Dossip's Rapture-type ending sequence feels so apt. And again, we tend to think of these more niche gaming communities as something unique or abnormal, but the truth is we're all spending more and more time in these virtual worlds.
Yeah.
And I don't want to doom and gloom too much, but these places are not run by some democratic government or the promise of a
true.
more people-led space that many thought would arise out of the internet in the early days. They're owned by corporations with a very select number of individuals with immense power over them. And they are not immune to the same fate as many an MMO. I've been thinking a lot about the rise of machine learning generated content. Everything
Yes.
from image and video, chatbots, and social media bots. As established, these are real spaces filled with real people that are, as we speak, being flooded with innumerable husks that look and talk almost like real people, but aren't. And they exist everywhere, from YouTube to Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever people use now. I'm not really on that stuff anymore. The digital worlds many of us spend the majority of our time socializing within, filled with hollow mannequins. I'm not an expert on the technicality of LLMs and image and video generation. I don't know if they really will get to some completely indistinguishable point, or taper off eventually, or poison their own data sets. I really don't know. But I think if we understand how impactful and concrete the online social world is, we can really understand the weight of how these technologies are changing these spaces and what that means. It's like we're going to parties or museums or libraries or the park or a coffee shop, these digitized third places, and talking to those around us, having no idea if there's actually another human being on the other side. This isn't the dead end.
I'll comment on that briefly. I think that's a lot of doom and gloom against AI. I don't have anything against AI. I have used it quite a bit myself in the past. AI is just a tool, much like a hammer. If I was going to build a house, I would definitely want a hammer. Just like if I was going to, if I need, like, for example, to go back to D&D, if we were going to play D&D and I needed a real quick image of like the shopkeeper, I didn't have something, I could very easily go to AI and generate something just to give you an idea of what I felt the shopkeeper would look like. Just something boom, boom. It's a tool to be used. And I think that the whole like doom and gloom about AI is just like it's terribly misplaced. Yeah, exactly. And it's you said a good soul. Hello, Alec. I saw you there. Yes, I was in the middle of a ramble. It's really useful for bass. Yeah. It's really good to work with. My opening song, which I just made, were lyrics that were written by me, and AI helped me kind of like make it come to life. But yeah, it's I don't buy into the whole like doom and gloom with the stuff. You have me the whole stream. Good. I'm glad I have you the whole stream. You're my captive. You're my prisoner. As are you all. Let's continue. Let's finish this.
Internet theory or some such conspiracy. It's just the inevitability of introducing a flood of bots onto a platform, and has happened before from everything from video games to social media. But we have to wonder, what's really the
I mean, but to comment on that once again, I mean, internet scraping's been a thing forever since like the 90s. I could code a script to scrape like a specific website to download all the images or all the data that it had to have like an offline copy. So I don't really see that as like, if anything, the bots or the AI, so to speak, just do it faster. I don't know.
value in that? Outside of brief novelty, what is the value in talking to a person who does not exist? Just responding to a text output that can't think or understand or feel or relate to you, but can respond in a way that makes you feel like maybe it can?
I would have to argue against that and say there is an anime called Serial Experiments Lane, which is one of my favorites, which basically addresses that concept very well. And the concept of it is basically that somebody only exists as long as you remember them. And if you stop remembering them, then it's like they delete themselves from your memory. They cease to exist. I mean, I can, now that I'm forcing myself to right now, I can remember friends that I've had like since elementary. But if you were to ask me like, oh, like, are they real? It's like, well, are they? Because I haven't really interacted with them since elementary. Are they still real? Real is a very subjective term. It's all about personal perspective, personal, um, you know, concept. I mean, if we want to get into the ideological discussion as far as AI, chatbots being real, then it's like we would also have to. I'd have to bring up Star Trek: Next Generation. The Measure of a Man, where they talked in depth about that in regards to Data when they wanted to take him apart and replicate him, and it's kind of like, does his artificial life not have value? I mean, it's kind of like neither here nor there. That's at the very the very extreme end of the pool, but it's very like, Anyway, okay, yeah, let's finish this off. Classic at Ursula listen to
promise of these virtual worlds
I
was
love
that they were a
Blaine.
place for people from all over the world to connect with one another. But I wonder if we'll get to a point where we can never be sure if we really are talking to another human being. Maybe we can fish out the AI 90% of the time, but I don't know if most people will be able to sustain being 100% sure 100% of the time. I don't say this to be all doomy. I don't know if this will all equalize into something more sustainable after some inevitable market crash, or if it will continue even faster, or whatever. But to circle back to
the
our point
future
about playing MMOs, I wonder if this is the beginning of our cue to get out into the physical world a bit more again. These online places have acted as real spaces for us for a long time, but I wonder if pretty soon parts of the internet will fall to the same fate as the ones seen in these games, filled with NPCs, as in literal AI characters, talking and interacting with each other. As enshittification and bots makes the place feel less and less worth it, the user base bleeds out back into the physical world, leaving the internet, at least the mainstream internet, a dying MMO.
That's a bit too doom and gloom for me. I appreciate the video, but it's a bit
Thank you
too
all for
doom and gloom
watching.
for me.
I know the ending took a bit of a turn. As I was writing, I think a lot of my more general thoughts about the internet just kept pushing their way in, and I decided, what the hell, let's make that the whole conclusion. I once again recommend you play all of these games for yourself and check out the other games from the Dying MMO Jam as well. I especially liked Running Back to You and Only Two Remain. This video may be the last of the year. I've got a big project coming up, which I guess I can kind of give a hint at here, see if you can guess it. It's about an experimental horror novel with a found footage film, non-Euclidean house, and some very complicated themes, which I am currently trying my best to tease out. So look forward to that.
That's way over my head and way too generic.
And happy holidays, everyone. See you soon.
Awesome. Okay. That was the Horrors of a Dying World, or Dying MMO, by Sagan Hawks. I should have been subscribed to him. I think I subscribed to him on my my other account. I have a personal account that I just have for screening videos beforehand. Not necessarily because I try to pre-watch them. I just try to make sure that they're gonna be safe for like TOS stuff. So I will like skim watch the first 5 minutes, give or take. And yeah, I will link to this, guys. Definitely go check it out if you have any interest to do so. It's kind of hit or miss for me. Towards the end, he kind of went all like doom and gloom in regards to like anti-AI stuff, and you know, like I'm not for or against it one way or the other. AI is a tool. It's like driving a vehicle. I mean, I have access to horses. Would I use horses? Absolutely. But if I needed to go somewhere really far, would I not use a horse to get there? No, I would definitely prefer to use a car instead of a horse to get there. But I digress.